Hi everyone, David Simon Toledo with Spoon River Valley Lodge number 427. Welcome you right back to our YouTube page. What you're going to be watching is the town hall meeting that we had May 13th, 2021 in Canton. Present were the Executive Director of the Illinois Sheriff's Association, Jim Kaitschuk. We also had State Representative Mark Luft, along with several other officials in public safety. There was some question and answer, along with detailing various aspects of the new Safety Act, which is the new law coming into effect beginning July of this year, July 1st, and then other provisions come into effect the 1st of January 2022, and the rest of it should be in effect by January 1st, 2023. I did try to boost the audio on this video, and so you're going to hear some hissing in the background, but it was the only way that I could get the voices heard for the whole video. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment section below. Look forward to seeing you. Bye.
Amen. Thank you. We had 4 police officers killed in line of duty this week. They were police officers Jimmy in from Stockton Police Department and of Water. Tuesday, May 11, 2021, Deputy Sheriff Stephen Jones, Kaitschuk County Sheriff's Office, Texas, into watch was May 10th, 2021. Deputy Sheriff Samuel Leonard, also Kaitschuk County Sheriff's Office, there was a 911 call. These guys were set up and they were ambushed. And Detective Luca Benedetti, San Luis Obispo Police Department, also on May 10th, 2021. So, we will we'll have a question and answer after we get done with this. I would like to thank the Lakeview Event Center for hosting us, Kendall Miller for doing the sound, David Toledo for doing it. This is being live streamed on the Spoon River Valley FOP public page. And I would like to thank the Spoon River Valley Fraternal Order Police Lodge 427 Associates. I would like to thank our executive board for helping put all of this together. It'll be a good thing. It'll be an eye-opening experience for all of you. The goal of this town hall is to explain, best of all, what you, the citizens, are going to face in 49 days at 12:01 a.m. July 1st. The world of law enforcement is going to change. There's going to be a lot of things that can no longer happen when you call 911 or you need a police officer. And these guys are going to explain it. This right here, I have a 3-ring. This is House Bill 3653, 764 pages. Each legislature had 45 minutes to go through this. This is what law enforcement now has to live with. And the Black Caucus is in control. This is not a racist statement. The Black Caucus is in control of the political agenda in the 102nd General Assembly in Springfield. The Democrats have a supermajority. The Republicans can make no inroads and basically have no voice, correct? We in law enforcement every day get labeled as being systemically racist. Police officers are not racist. That's a lie. It's a full-faced lie. And I will challenge anybody who says otherwise. There's been a choreographed effort across this nation over the past almost a year now to dehumanize law enforcement. We're humans. You cut us. We read just like everybody else does. And they paint the picture that every morning that before law enforcement officers go out on the street, that they randomly pick somebody out and shoot them in the back. They literally have been accused of that on the Senate floor in Springfield. We also are zooming in John Canton IL, he's the president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 7. It's the largest FOP laws in the United States. I asked John to speak because we have to understand that as much as we derail the city of Chicago, we have to understand as Chicago goes, so goes the rest of the Illinois. These poor men and women in Chicago Police Department have been dealing with the collateral damage of systemic liberalism since Kim Fox was sworn into office. And John is going to share some of the horrors that these guys have lived with. It's going on there now. And what happens in Chicago in 49 days is going to start filtering through the other 101 counties in the state of Illinois. So with that, I'm going to introduce our panel tonight. We have the Public Safety Director of Canton, Dick Fairburn. We have Jim Kaitschuk. He's the Executive Director of the Illinois Sheriff's Association. He's also a part-time member of the Menard County Sheriff's Department. He's also a member of our lodge. We have Chris Sargent. He's the Chief of Police of Farmington, and we have Mayor Tim McDowell. Each one of them is going to speak about some segment and how it impacts them. We also have Mayor Doug Wayfair from Wilson. He's also a member of the lodge. And we also have Mark Luft. He's our state rep, 91st District State Rep. He'll say a few words. Mark is in the front lines every day down in suburbs on Springfield. So thanks, Mark. Glad to see you. Thank you. So with that, Chris Sargent is going to start it off. And then at the end, like I said, we're going to have question and answer. 1, 2. Chris will speak first, and Kim McDowell speak, and then we'll let Mark speak, and then we'll have Jim Kaitschuk wrap it up, and then we can go into question and answer. So. Chris, take it off.
My name is Chris Dark. I'm the Chief of Farmington. I took over 2017, worked at the Fulton County Sheriff's Office for 10.5 years before then. When I got to the Farmington, we had already had in-car cameras, and I wanted to look at body cameras. Back then, it was $90,000 just to get all the equipment I needed for my guys that have body cameras. The city councils talked about just paying for it, and we're going to pay for what we need to, but when I was looking at the grants that come across as soon as they sign this bill, they want us to fork over the money first before we get any back. So, small town like Farmington, we're 2,500 people, $9,000 is a lot of money for our department. The other day I spoke to an insurance carrier that provides insurance to our police department, and I asked him about the qualified immunity if that goes away. Like these guys will tell you to begin with, you have to qualify for that qualified immunity, it's not given to you. So if you really screwed up, you're not getting it. So I talked to our insurance carrier, and he says that they would provide that to the city, but at a cost. Unknown cost what that's going to be. I'm sure it's not going to be cheap. Every year our insurance keeps going up. But they at least guaranteed us that they'll at least provide the same coverage that qualified immunity gave to us. But once again, you just don't get it. So if you make a mistake and it's covered underneath qualified immunity, they'll grant it to you. They'll cover whatever lawsuits come that way. But again, the city's got to be able to afford that coverage as well. As soon as this bill was signed in, the first day I had every single officer in my office. Most of them wanted to stop doing it right now. A lot of them are young guys that just got started in this thing. And this is a big commitment. It takes time away from your family. You spend a lot of holidays with just guys working. You see your family most generally. And these guys that they don't know how to do this because they don't want to get sued, put in jail for doing their job. And right now, the way that the state's treating most law enforcement officers, you gotta wonder every time you go out on a call, are they gonna put you on the TV next for doing your job? I did end up losing one full-time officer shortly after this, and his excuse and his resignation letter told me specifically that it's because of this page bill here that we got going on, and he just don't have heart for it. And he's about a little bit older than me, and he's done. He's gonna go install satellite dish instead. So at least no matter what he does, he's not gonna have constantly the media always kind of after him doing the job. And then I talked to all my part-time guys. It's a small department like mine. at the chief's meeting that we had recently, one of the guys from the NTU unit came and talked to us, and he told us there is no training for any of this. So we're going to start off July 1st, and we don't have any training. We have no idea how to handle most of this that's in that bill. So I have guys that won't have me ready. There's no training in the works. There's very little, if any. And a lot of their trainings they had before, they were telling us, well, we don't want you to have it, so you have a couple of years on the road. Now they're wanting you to take it right off the bat. So they don't even know what they want our officers to do either there. And they don't have much of a game plan. And we're running out of time on that. And then we just sent a guy to the academy just recently, just got back. That cost our department, by the time we paid the academy, which the academy doesn't pay for everything. They build a state, and the state will pay for it all. Now I'm told we make 80% of that back, maybe. You can probably think about 50% of that here to get back. So after my department forks over almost $15,000 to get my guys ready to go, since there's a shortage of officers everywhere, the bigger departments come and swoop in and take our guys. So it is going to be very difficult for our departments to keep, especially the small ones like me and Lewistown and all the small departments there. We're not going to be able to keep these guys because we're putting costs and they're bailing us right off the bat for something bigger. And it is what it is. There's nothing to do about it. We never used to have to worry about that much because there wasn't a huge officer shortage like there is now. My main concern in this whole bill is the citizens of Farmington and any citizens in the state of Illinois. You're going to have to deal with the fallout of this reform, and our hands are tied. We're going to go to your house. We're not going to be able to do much. You got to complain somebody's on your property. We used to be able to take them to jail, at least they're doing it. Now we're going to go right and take it to leave. And then they come right back. The next thing is going to take it to leave. We can't do anything to them. And somebody thought that was a great idea to put it into the law. So we're going to have a big issue there. What I worry about is the victims that are having people harassing or coming and sitting on the property. They're going to take this into their own hands. And they're the ones going to jail. Because the government wants them going to jail because they classify that as worse offense than what they're doing. And it just doesn't make any sense to me at all. The innocent victims are going to be now the ones going to be incarcerated. They're going to be the ones getting in trouble while lawbreakers get to do whatever they want. And fortunately for me, and anybody who knows the city of Farmington, we have a city council, and the citizens are very positive for law enforcement. I go anywhere I go, everybody tells me, we have your back, we have your back. And it's nice to hear because all I see on TV is the news hating every cop that walks around. And they don't say anything nice about anything to do. Thankfully, these smaller towns, this county in general, I have not run into anyone that says that they don't have our back. And they don't want to see us defunded, which is fantastic. Can't say the rest for everywhere else in the state of Illinois. But just in my eyes, we're pretty lucky in general, I believe, with the citizens in this county. Most of the state, they really don't want us doing it. But when it comes up time for the elections, everybody needs to understand, and it's public knowledge who voted for this. And your best bet, if you want things to change, you're going to have to vote them out. Because if not, it's just going to get worse. They keep adding more bills, and more bills, and more bills. They want to take school resource officers out of our schools. I don't know about most schools around here, but Farmington loves mine. And they don't want to let it go. But they did have some people trying to push that out as well. So I just ask all of you guys, pay attention to what's going on in the media, know who your representatives are, know how they're voting. Because unfortunately, it's going to affect everybody in this room here. So you need to remember that next time we vote and get those guys out of here. They have no business doing anything or running the state if they're going to allow you guys to be victims of crime.
I do have to tell you the sheriff's standard was going to be here. However, he called me at 5 o'clock and he is Cadwell. And he lives north of here and there in Peoria County. So he is going to serving all of you, the public. And I will echo what Chris said. We live in a good area where 99.9% of the people support law enforcement and are great to us, but more and more of them are not. And are we good to go with John?
John, can you speak for a second?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now. Go ahead.
So we're good?
Yeah.
John Canton from Chicago.
All right, good evening, everybody. I want to say thank you to Ike and President Southwood for inviting me to participate in this forum. Wish I could be there with you personally. That was the original plan, but we have a benefit going on for police survivors downstairs with our loans committee, so I was kind of pot committed up here. I will definitely make a point to be there the next time in person. All I gotta say is be grateful you are where you are. You're not in this corrupt location. I'll just leave it at that. I'm going to keep it PG-13 here, but as you know, the FOP members up there, even Jim Kaitschuk, and I don't know who else is on the panel there, but I own responsibility for much of what's going wrong in this state because it all does originate from Chicago. That's just a simple reality we all face, and I'm not going to shy away from it. Whether it's perceived wrongs or whether they're actual wrongs, everything is Chicago-based, and the rest of the state pays the price for it every single time. It's not right. I ask these politicians to come after me, come after us, leave the rest of the state alone. There's good people, there's good people here, there's good people through this state who have no dog in this fight, except you just dragged them into the backyard, and now they're stuck there. We're all stuck there. We have 2.5 weeks to unwind this nightmare legislation. And the simple reality is, wherever you are right now, I can assure you, you're where Chicago was about 20, 25 years ago, where things weren't maybe the best, but you really weren't concerned about what was going on in some other location. Well, Chicago was asleep at the wheel. This lodge in Chicago was asleep at the wheel. We let politicians take over with agendas instead of looking out for what's best for civilized society. And we are absolutely reaping the penalty for that. I can tell you, I'm just going to give you some simple stats. Crime last year, homicide specifically in Chicago, went up almost 61% last year. We are on pace, and we did have a drop, so I will say that. We were headed in the right direction in 2019 briefly, but that changed pretty quickly. So you had a major increase last year, now we're even ahead of last year's pace this year. Last year, Chicago police officers confiscated or arrested people and took in over 10,000 handguns or rifles in the city limits alone in 1 year. 10,000. That is more than New York and LA combined. We have more homicides than New York and LA combined. There is something in this lake water, I don't know what it is, but the people up here act entirely different than anywhere else in the city I've ever visited. And the stats do not lie. It does fall largely in the politicians' lap for allowing that kind of behavior to occur. For a long time, downtown Chicago was a great place to visit. It was the gem of this state, no doubt about it. I know you might count that downstate, but with the lakefront, nightlife, and everything, it was an amazing place to visit. But for the last 5 years, I wouldn't send a single relative downtown Chicago to walk at nighttime. Quite frequently, when the weather gets warm, there is literally groups of 80 to 100 or more teenagers just roaming wild, causing havoc, breaking windows, punching people, robbing people, and there's just group to group to group, and they just run wild downtown all weekend long. That's what Chicago is now. We unfortunately have about 680 days left with our miserable mayor, unless something takes her out sooner, a scandal. But I can tell you, the FOP is dedicated to preserving civilized society, not only in Chicago, but in this state and where you live too. Because it's here now. But sooner or later, they're either going to start running out of victims, or they're going to start finally getting the pushback they deserve. And they've already had this criminal behavior entrenched in their mindset, where they've gotten away with it for so long, they're not going to stop if they run out of victims here, or they get forced out. They're just going to go somewhere else. And quite likely, it's going to come to a neighborhood near you if you're not vigilant and stay on top of these politicians on what you're going to accept in your community. It all starts in these little communities. That's just the reality of it. Elections matter. We are 100% involved in political action in Chicago and the FOP Lodge 7, unlike ever before. I have dedicated our members to ponying up the money to have $1 million a year PAC fund plus going forward, because we know we have to change the dynamic in city council with these corrupt 50 aldermen, a terrible mayor, a county board that is absolutely destitute at best. And so goes Chicago, so goes the rest of the state. So I can just pledge to everybody in that room that we are going to do our due diligence to try and change this tide from a Chicago standpoint. All we're asking for is support and for you to fight the fight. Please don't stand on the sidelines. You may have a great politician, whether it's a senator or a representative right now or even a mayor, but that doesn't mean you can't still be politically active in other ways all across the state to let these politicians who are on the fence know that we don't want our state to keep turning in the direction it's going right now, because it will be unlivable. This state will be Detroit in 1995 across this whole state. It will be a barren wasteland, especially if the tax revenue in Chicago continues to flee, which it is. I wish we could succeed. I know there have been movements about Chicago being its own state. I wish we could make that happen for the rest of the state so they can live peacefully without the nonsense that Chicago brings to the scene. But we're kind of stuck together like cousins that don't like each other. But all I can tell you is I'm certainly dedicated to fighting this fight. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not backing down. That's not in my DNA. I love a good fight, and I appreciate your support. It is Police Memorial Month, and I'm just going to give you an example of the demons that we fight here at the FOP. Police Memorial Month, I forgot around this. Last year, we had 3 officers who tragically died due to COVID in the month of April. Pretty close together. Within 18 days, 3 of them passed away. And we normally have our Memorial St. Jude Parade the first Sunday of May to honor the fall. Well, it got canceled last year because of COVID. And we all understood there was a lot of uncertainty around COVID. We had just had 3 deaths and nobody knew how much worse it was going to get. So, by and large, the department was okay with the cancellation of the St. Jude Parade last year, as crushed. However, the department then, because of the riots and ridiculousness in Chicago, saw fit to pack our officers 40, 50 in a bus for hours on end, waiting to deploy somewhere else. We've been forced to go to in-service training in classrooms, packed together like sardines, because of a consent decree. Guard protest after protest after protest. Canceled days off. We've had officers work 27 straight days in a row, 12 hours, 14 hours, to exhaustion. And, this department used us like rented mules when it was sufficient to them. Well, here we are now in May again, and they used COVID as an excuse to not have a St. Jude March yet again last week. So I took the bull by the horns, and I just don't accept that kind of nonsense. We deserve to honor our fallen every single year, rain or shine. So Lodge 7 put together a St. Jude March, and will be taking place this Sunday, rain or shine, with or without the cooperation of the police department, which they have not cooperated. They are 100% against us having this parade. But that's the kind of nonsense we have to deal with on a daily basis, even from within our own ranks at headquarters in Chicago. It's a daily fight, but I don't know, if you're not fighting, you're not living, in my opinion. I appreciate your time and attention, and I just want to give a shout out to America's second favorite sheriff, Jim Kaitschuk. Everybody loves Brady Jones, Florida better, but he's not too bad for me.
Does anybody have any questions for John from Chicago? We'll be back here.
He's not.
I trust me, John's not. He has opened that one a lot.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it. See you tomorrow. Peace. When Mark goes next? Mark, He's our state rep. Pekin. He's been on the front lines battling this, and I appreciate those who endure what is going on. So, on it all.
Thank you. First off, thank you all for allowing me to be part of this. And thank you to the people of Fulton County to give me the opportunity to go into this arena and fight for you. I also want to say a quick hello to Patrick. I don't know if it was the glare off your head or mine, but I didn't see you sitting there, but I do now. How you doing? What adventure? Think about what you've heard so far. On January 13th, I was given a pass to be on the Bank of Springfield, Florida, for inauguration. I went early because I wanted to see the process of this law enforcement bill, and I wanted to hear the discussions that most of the public did not get to hear. I wanted to be there for that and hear exactly what was going on. So I went very early and I listened and I walked around. I even went down in the basements where the caucuses were holding meetings, put my ear to the crack of the door because I wanted to hear everything. And it was very, very ugly. While I was standing there listening to that, I remember sitting in the office of my sheriff and my chief of police, worrying about this, how we were going to clear a path if this bill passed to get through this and deal with the consequences of this as well. While we were sitting there, we got a phone call to turn on the TV. When we turned on the TV, there it was at the Capitol. The point that hit me is after the situation in the Capitol, for a week after that, every news media, the same people who were at the Capitol fighting to defund the police were the same ones out there complaining that there was not enough help. They did not feel safe. Where are all the police? Where's all our help? And I hoped for a minute that that would be a trigger for Springfield not to do this. And they did it anyway. I'm dealing with it already. I'm still the mayor of Pekin. I have 2 cases that we're working on right now. A young lady being harassed by a gentleman, tried to kill her, harm her family. Family filed a restraining order. He violated that restraining order, hacked into her email, threatened her life again. So he was arrested for violating that order of protection. He was in the police station maybe 10 minutes and then let go. Because that happens in this meeting. The family is outraged, scared to death. They're hiding their dog and don't know where to turn. As police officers, former police officers, what do you tell that family? When they come to my district office, what do I tell them? How do I help them? So this is a very serious situation. I was having a conversation before I got here. I spent most of the day in Springfield, and I canceled a couple committees I was to be in so I could be here. Because this is a very, very important subject for all of us. There is a storm on its way. We haven't even got a base of it yet. It's just cloudy right now. The real storm has to come. We're going to see lawsuits. We're going to see municipalities go bankrupt. This is a very, very dangerous situation that we're in right now. Along with that, there's some more storms behind that. And I do want to say, it keeps rolling over and over in my head, shame on the media for not putting out the truth. Shame on the media for hiding what's going on. Because that's exactly what they're doing. They're hiding. I had friends years ago that used to ask me, Mark, what news station do you watch? And I wouldn't answer because at that time it seemed like there was this ongoing battle of CNN and Fox. I watched friends and family have arguments about what news stations they watched. So I didn't answer. Actually, I answered with this. Whatever news station you watch, Google the owner. Read about the owner. Once you read about him, you'll find out the stream of news is coming your way. Or so-called information. What I call manipulation. Google the owner of the station you watch and find out what kind of news you're getting. So now I'm down there. I watched that go through, and I got sworn in to their arena. Now I've been sitting there watching the other storms build that are heading our way. That law enforcement bill was just a start. That is just a start. I'm watching them pass through the floor right now, basically changing felonies to misdemeanors. There's a sense of emptying jails. Who's in there now? And let's fill them back up with our officers. See how they like me in here. We're going to turn the tables. Bill after bill after bill is going through right now. Not just in law enforcement, in other areas that are going to affect all of us. I drive home on a daily basis. I just turned 55 a month ago. And now I drive home on a daily basis, wondering if I will ever see what I remember as life, as I know it. And everybody has their own life. But life as I know it has changed. And I don't see it there anymore. You all will feel the same way once these bills start affecting the communities in the state. In the counties, and it's going to. But by then, it's already a done deal. The scary thing is, this is going on right now from January to May. May 31st, we check out of there. At that point, we're going to start feeling the brunt of what is happening on that floor. Once you feel that, keep this in mind. They still have next January through May to do as they please. To give you a good example of how it works down there, when we had to vote on house rules, we were promised on our side that it would be fair, they would work with us, it would not be like the old ways. And when we reached the point of voting on the rules, we were handed those to review about 30 minutes before they had to be voted on. And not only were they business as usual, but they were worse. We were not allowed on the floor at the time the leadership was to debate it. So we all ran back to our offices. Right above your office, right above your desk, there's a speaker. You can turn that on and listen to everything that's going on the house floor. So I turned my own, shut the door, sat back in my chair, and prepared for the worst. There was a representative, Avery Bourne, who's in leadership in the Republican Party. Very, very bright individual, well-spoken, well-educated. She does her homework, and there's a reason she's in leadership. She put out, "You promised, we agreed, we're supposed to be working together. Madigan's gone, it's supposed to be different now. We need more time to look at bills. We need time to be able to bring down witnesses. We have rights just like you do." The right side of that House floor represents 5.7 million people in the state of Illinois. We haven't said anything. When she got done, a representative out of Chicago stood up and said, "There's something you need to understand. People in the state of Illinois elected us a supermajority for a reason. And that reason is they don't care what we think. We don't care what we think. Our constituents don't care what we think." And then she said that. and they pass the rules. And we're living by those right now. They break them all the time. They maneuver them to their advantage. They don't have to listen to us. They don't have to speak to us. My district director has a session on in my office. Put a TV screen up for her. She watches every time we're in session. She had no clue about state government. She actually worked in City Hall for me as the mayor. I brought her into my district office. She has absorbed over the last 5 months of education like no other. She can't believe what she is watching. She will text me. They're not even paying attention to who's talking or what anybody's saying. I know. Dad, like they don't care what you have to say. I know. Educate yourself. Find out what's really going on. If there's a Facebook page you trust, IFRP, City of Canton, you'll get the right information. Do not allow yourself to be a culture that puts more faith in rumors than facts. Find those facts. Call my office. I'll make sure you get it. And the whole row of people up here that will make sure you get what you need. Facts. What you just heard up here, somebody taking responsibility for shot. That is a hell of a guy to sit in front of people and take that responsibility and acknowledge the facts. What they should have done with that law enforcement bill, if they really wanted to do something with it and they were dead set on it, they should have made it a pilot program for Chicago. And let Chicago work it out amongst themselves. Let Chicago go through the storms and the nightmares that this is going to bring. That's what they should have done. The bill was written there. The Chicago mayor had input on it. Actually, what I was told is that part of that bill where an officer can't go back and review his camera, that was asked to be put in there by the Chicago mayor. That's what I was told. Educate yourself on what's going on. Don't sit back and let other people take care of it. That's why I got this. Everybody thought I was crazy. Why would you want to go into this at this time? And I can answer that. Just really by looking around this. I can answer that. I got it right down the street in my community and wanting to say the way it is. I can answer that by walking into my district office and working for you. Walking into my mayor's office and working for my community. That's how I help. Because I want to help. I want to help get us to a better place. I want to help build relationships. Kim McDowell, Mayor of Canton. One phone call. Never met the guy before. Well, I think we met at some chicken thing one time, but we didn't have a chance to talk. I don't know whose mouth was full, but I don't know mine. One phone call. I love this guy, Patrick O'Brien. First time I met him. Chris. These are really good people. You are in great hands with these people. You need to help support them. You need to get out into the field and work. Protect ourselves. It's not going to go away. This is not a situation where you cross your fingers or think this is temporary or go away. This is the fastest culture change I've ever seen in my life. I'm only 55. But I've never seen anything change as fast as it has the last 2 years. We still have almost 2 years left. One of the things that I'm told everywhere I go, because the people that know me say, give me a reminder, Mark, please keep it to 10 minutes. Keep it to 15 minutes. When I ran for mayor and city council, we had to go to forums. Anybody who's been involved in those, they tell you how much time you have to give an answer. And they hold up a red card to let you know, knock it off. You need to stop. There's a forum I haven't been at that the holder of that forum hasn't handed me that red card at the end of the forum and told me to go home and study the meaning of that red card. I could stand up here forever and talk, but I want to hear Ken. I want to hear others, but I can't stress to you enough. Educate yourself on what's going on. I'm here for you. My office is open to you. I can work with anybody. I will work with anybody. I love the IFOP. I was endorsed by them. And I'm here for them as well. Anything you need, let me know. Thank you.
The next presenter is going to be Mayor Canton IL. He's also a retired police officer. He's also a member of our college.
Thanks, I don't have really a whole lot to say because I really don't know what's going to come down the pipe financially. That was part of my talk tonight, was the impact on the taxpayers of the city of Canton. I know that the body cams that we have to have in our community, in Lewiston and Farmington, Sheriff's Office, we have to be online by 2025. The body cams is not the issue. I'm very much pro body cam. I've always told young police officers that in this day and age, act like you're being videoed because you are. So act like you have a brain and don't get yourself jammed up. The key to the body cams is the storage. Storage costs thousands and thousands of dollars, and that will continue to go up and up and up because they've got you. And you have to keep those, probably for a lifetime. Who knows? That in the forefront will be the biggest cost to the smaller communities because you'll be mandated, an unfunded mandate again, to have the body cam. Mark said something kind of heavy. He said, they're on the floor right now making misdemeanors out of felonies. Well, now they've taken good police work and made it a felony. These body cams is beyond me because I'm not very smart anyway. For 40 years, I was a police officer. Lo and behold, I go on video cameras. That made me a much better report writer because I could go back and look at my tape and look what I saw at that time and write it down because there was nothing to hide. It was right there. That's a felony now. My advice to I have two sons in law enforcement. Well, one was retired. My other son in law enforcement. I said, I know my report would say. My report would say, I came, I saw view my body cam and report. I wouldn't want to stick my neck in that noose. I don't know anybody that would because if you look at it, that's a class 3 felony, which in the state of Illinois is at least a minimum of 7 years of state penitentiary. It's ludicrous. It's insane. Accelerating the price, anticipating this happening, so they're all going to jump in and get a piece of fire. Thank God our carrier assured me that our costs will be going up immediately, but we don't know. Nobody knows anything that's going to happen because none of us have a crystal ball. It never ceases to amaze me that it's always our back that they try to build something off of. It comes out of our wallet. You know, when like Representative Luft said, they sit down there and they make this stuff up and they don't think of the cost financially or the unit cost for that matter. And I can just about assure you that a large majority of all this in this room will either A, be victimized, B, have a relative victimized, or C, have a close friend victimized because of the impact of this so-called Reform Act. I can guarantee it. I can see vigilantism on the rise. future, which is not going to be good for our society. I can see, but I just want to say that this is not, who's active right now? This is not their fault. But who's going to take the brunt of it? Who's going to get the blame? It's going to be the brown suit and blue suiters, the women and men on the street doing the job every day. They're the ones who are going to get blamed for it. It's not their fault. So remember that. That's why we're so fortunate in this area to have the type of people that we have here, that are self-reliant, strong, and we stick up for each other. And people love law and order in this area. The impact of this law is going to create such hatred, I'm afraid, towards law enforcement because you're not doing your job. Well, ladies and gentlemen, they are doing their job. The rumor around the campfire is that at some point that cities are going to have to start buying individual insurance policies for their officers. In the medical world, that's called malpractice. I taught at the Springfield Police Academy for over 20 years with Mr. Fairburn. And tongue-in-cheek, the last several years I was teaching down there, I would tell these young cadets, ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a day in your time when you're going to have to buy malpractice insurance. Tongue-in-cheek. I never thought I'd see that day, but here it is. Just like Representative West said, it's on the horizon, and it's coming. And guess who's going to pay for that? It's going to be in your tax bill. Because municipalities are going to go broke trying to keep up with all this. The other thing that Chief Darsham said is, I think you need to understand the financial impact, is that when these young women and men come to a police department and they go to the academy, that's the cost of the taxpayer. Some stay, some go to other departments, some will just be fed up and get out. And then there's a continual door just going on and on and on. And not right now, they won't share a standard here, but I can tell you that most police departments are struggling just to find candidates. So now the stress is put on those women and men that we have in uniform working. Somebody's got to fill those cars. And there's a breaking point of the overtime and the exhaustion. There's a breaking point. And then those people that do come into law enforcement or want to come into law enforcement, the standards have to be lower just so they can get bodies. When the standards are lower, lawsuits stop. You're not getting the cream of the crop. So those are just a few of the financial impacts that I can see on the horizon. The one I know for sure, the body cams is going to be coming soon. The liability part of it, the part of the revolving door with the officers, we don't know. We don't know what that's going to bring. But I can assure you, by the looks of this, that it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be, we're going to be burning it all. You know, like I said, I did almost 40 years as a police officer, and I never in my wildest imagination when I think that I'm looking at this. You know, my old son has 3 years left. The lock is 20, and I said, get out. Lock your retirement, get out. And again, that's a burden on the taxpayers. But that's what's happening, and that's happening all over. And I don't know how Farmington, Canton, Lewiston, the county of Fulton are going to survive the financial bind that's going to put on them. You know, they talk about the thin blue line, and that is the difference, really, in our society. That line separates us from anarchy and democracy. Well, this bill has trudged that line to the brink. So that's what they've done. I don't want to stand up here and belabor the point. It's just not going to be pretty. You're going to pay for it either through your municipality or your own insurance. Your own insurance is going to go up. So they're going to see that if you continually victimize a high crime area, you're not going to be able to buy insurance. So the financial impact is going to be all around us. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't see it that way. Thank you.
Invite Dick Fairburn up, he's the public safety director of Canton, and while he's coming up, Scott County Iowa is data. The last I heard was they have 26 police officers from Illinois on hiring. Iowa, they're offering bonuses, $10,000 bonuses for Illinois, because Iowa will tell you that the Illinois police officers are the best trained police officers in the United States. They're offering $10,000, you still live in Illinois, when you come up for us. We got 26 police officers. Moline is down 8 or more. So Dick's going to speak, and then Jim's going to speak, and we'll do some Q&A.
Thank you. I like to joke that I'm like Andy, you know, I'm the chief in Mayberry. I'm not going to tell you this is a no crime area, you know better than that. But we are fortunate to live in a very low crime area especially compared to Chicago. And I think as of July 1, I think you're going to see Chicago turn into a Mad Max movie. Because they've already been letting those murderers out for no bail. Now they won't even probably get in jail and be booked again. So they're teaching them that they can do what they want. And as the president of the Chicago chapter said, if they run out of things to do there, where do you think they're going to come? They're going to come here. I've been a trainer for a number of years until Ken convinced me to move back home. And I write for a website, the largest police website. So I think on a national scale sometimes with some of the other writers that we deal with. My latest article came out today, and it was basically, where are we going to go from here? What do we have to do? And I think we will find ourselves at a decision point soon, where we have to decide whether we're going to be more concerned about police officer safety or the safety of the citizens we protect. And it's not impolite, it's not cowardice. If a police officer goes down the line of duty, they can't help anyone. So we have to keep them upright. And it scares the hell out of me. I think very soon we're going to find out that we had to put 2 police officers in a car. That's almost impossible for us to do in Canton. It is impossible for us to do in Farmington for the county deputy state troopers. I've been tracking ambush killings in law enforcement since 1997. The worst year was 2016, with 20 incidents where police officers were ambushed. One of them, 5 officers were killed in Dallas in one incident. I don't know how many we've had this year. I lost track at 30, and it's coming up to 1 or 2 every week. Getting ambushed with a gun is one thing that's been going on for years. 3 weeks ago in St. Genevieve, Missouri, small town, Panamanian Police Department. An officer was ambushed with a Molotov cocktail. The guy threw it and broke on the officer's arm. He's going to survive. But that's what our officers are facing. So I think at some point we're going to see police departments start to pull back and not deliver the kind of service to the citizens we'd like to, because we have to keep ourselves alive. That's a horrible decision we're going to have to make. I hope we never have to see it here in Mayberry, but I think they're going to see. I think they're already seeing it in Chicago. So that's what scares me the most. I mean, we have no training on this. We have liability like we can't imagine. But just personal safety of our officers, to me, is paramount. And I think we're going to see some states have some really tough decisions to make along the way. So thank you.
Jim, and I will, this is Jim Kaitschuk, as I said earlier. way for a couple of days. This man has worked tirelessly to defend everybody that sits up here and to protect all of you people. So that's all we've done.
Good evening, everybody. Jim Kaitschuk with the Sheriff's Association, as was indicated before, I'm also a part-time police officer. Unfortunately, tirelessly is probably correct, not as successful as I would have liked it to be. But I can tell you this, as he indicated, this issue and the issues and the attacks against law enforcement has never, if there's one positive to come from all of this, it has united law enforcement across the board like never before. So the ability to be able to pick up the phone and have a conversation with anybody in law enforcement about this, we're all in this together. And the communities that we represent and that we work for, we all work for you. So you obviously sense a lot of passion. I have a lot of passion about this as well. My frustration level with the General Assembly is, well, let me give you a little background. I've also been lobbying and representing organizations. I've done 27 years in the General Assembly. So, yes, I'm not very direct. Why would anybody, as Mark was talking about before, why would you do these kind of things? But the reality is, if people don't step up and fight it, it just keeps on growing. And I will give you an example from this spring thus far. I have testified more on Zoom in opposition to these ridiculous bills than I ever thought imaginable. And it's tiring, it's painful. But one of the things I can tell you is that very seldom in either the House or the Senate did anybody, the Republicans in the committee, support us. And I'm not trying to make this a partisan issue. They have. So that's very unfortunate, and it shouldn't be that way, but it's certainly been the way it's become. I also want to take a second too. John Canton IL talked about, that Chicago was all blamed because they were asleep at the wheel. They weren't the only ones. We've all been asleep at the wheel to some extent. We've all tried to find ways to work with, those people that want change on this or want change on that. The problem is, let me give you an analogy. If you give a mouse a cookie, what else are you going to want? You're going to want a glass of milk, right? And that's what we're fighting. The only thing that we continue to do over the last several years is move the base. So the floor's here, and then, okay, well, we'll agree to this. The floor's here, the next year they just keep coming. So I can assure you, that practice has ended, certainly for this organization that I work for this year. The sheriffs have had it. There's no more moving the floor. If you're going to pass things like defelonizing controlled substances like, I don't know, how important is fentanyl? 3 grams, a little bit. How many lethal doses are in 3 grams?
About 50,000.
There we go. I mean, it's just, there's no logic to some of this. It's just, it's a grab. And I don't know if there's any better way to define it. It has been an opportunistic grab by some. So I don't mean to get on a tangent there, but at the same time, I think it's important for everybody to know that all of us, and it's kind of becoming a American way, none of us seem to really care until it affects me. And we got to stop that. You can't be afraid to stick your head up. It's not whack-a-mole. You're going to have to, everybody is going to have to stand up and say, this is what I support, this is what I believe in. The days of hiding from are over. And if they're not over, then look for more what's coming. So, I get to be the bearer of the good tidings about all the wonderful things that were included in House Bill 3653. I refer to it as the lowlights. So, it now gives opportunity for the Attorney General's office to go after municipalities, units of local government, sheriff's offices on pattern and practice. Normally, that should be patterns in practice where you find wrongdoing in a sheriff's office, for example, and you do an investigation. Now, this is one time. If you found something wrong, you can go in and do an investigation the AG's office could against the agency as well as the individual officer. Ongoing mental health screenings. I work for a county, we were talking before, we were talking about 2-man patrols, for example. Well, a lot of times in Martin County, I may be the only deputy on the entire county. So 2-man patrols is probably not really likely, right? And I don't have to tell you guys here in Fulton County about the safety. You're not Mayberry. Bad things happen in Mayberry too. You all know that. More training. There was reference before about CIT training as an example. CI training, it's a great tool. We get a lot of that in the academy to begin with. Is there more that we can do? Sure there is. But that takes time away from the PD that you're working for. So you have to back up that, you have to pay for it, you have to send them off to training, you have to pay for that. All those things cost. Body cameras, they've been talked about a lot. No sworn affidavit. Now let me explain that a little bit. Are folks familiar with what I'm saying when I say no sworn affidavit? Let's say that you want to have a complaint against a police officer. Under today's law, you would have to be able to sign your name indicating that you had a complaint if you wanted to do a formal process. Now that doesn't mean that you can call Jeff Standard and say, hey, one of your deputies just mistreated me on this stuff, and Jeff's not going to take care of that, right? That's still going to happen. But in terms of pursuing something criminally, you're going to have a sworn affidavit indicating that you did this. Understanding that if you're lying, that's perjury. So what's going to happen? In most cases, the other element of the world that's not represented in this room is probably going to find out, man, who's the most aggressive cop that's arresting people for bad things? What do you think is going to happen? They're going to file a lot of complaints, and that cop's going to take off the street. Military equipment, that was another thing. How important would it have been for this community in Fulton County to have better military equipment about 2 years ago? When they were trying to go rescue an officer that had been shot. Resisting or obstructing. Okay, so I go out on a traffic stop with somebody. They refuse to tell me their name. They take off. Under this, I don't have any ability to do anything. I can't charge them with obstructing. I can't charge them with resisting because of this. That's a problem. I've got a murder scene. Somebody comes walking through the tape. I don't have an underlying offense that I could have charged them for that would be arrestable. There's nothing I can do. I'm in a fight under this bill. This is expansion of the chokehold. If I get somebody, I can't engage somebody. Okay, obviously, I'm not 55, but I'm 50. So back in my days of fighting, you know, I might have gotten somebody in the head, right? Under this bill, can't do it. So I told you before, I'm the only deputy on it. Closest backup, maybe 15, 20 minutes. What am I supposed to do? The only way I can do it is if there's a threat of serious bodily harm or death. I can't taser somebody in the back. Well, for those that have been trained on tasers, that's the primary location where you're supposed to tase them. It's in the back. I'm sure the feeling was, well, don't tase them in the back because it's like shooting them in the back and they're running away. Okay, well, you take the taser away from me, and now my only option is a legal option. Spray or taser, I'm going to announce. So I believe the intent here is that if you're in a crowd situation, in Chicago, in a protest, before you start going ahead and pepper spray the entire crowd, make sure that everybody can announce that you will announce them that can be heard. Well, the way they wrote it just doesn't affect crowd control. So I'm one-on-one with somebody. Hey, I'm about to spray you. Can you hear me? And one of the other things that was talking about that you specifically mentioned, the question about duty to render aid, duty to intervene. So under the law, and as police officers, you see us running in, when there's bullets flying, we're the ones going that direction while everybody else is coming this way, right? Because we have a duty to intervene. And it's really not just a duty. Those of us in law enforcement, it's not just a duty, it's a call. It is a legitimate calling where you don't even think about it, and you're going. Probably, again, on the IQ scale, probably not the smartest bunch of individuals, but nonetheless, that's what we do. But you're caught coming and going here. So you've got the duty to intervene, and you've also got a duty to render aid. So let's say, for example, and so we can't win. So you can't necessarily go slow to the call, because then your times are going to be, well, 2 years ago, your call for service at the same location, you would have normally been there in 7 minutes, and today you're 10. What's the problem? Welcome to your litigation, right? Class B and C misdemeanors, and I know you were referencing this earlier in terms of going to the house, and somebody's on your porch, and I'm going to write them a citation. The only good news on this one is this one becomes effective January 1st of 22, not July 1st. But it's still out there, Class B and Class C misdemeanor. So if I've got a peeping Tom, I can come write peeping Tom a ticket, but I can't physically remove it. I can't trespass on that. I'm just going to keep writing citations. If you're a business owner, somebody wants to sit in your business, so long as they're not openly and obviously threatening you, you're probably going to have to leave them in your business or wait for me to leave and you do what you need to do to get them out of there. From a jail standpoint, there's a whole new provision in terms of how we handle pregnant prisoners. The example would be, I've got somebody that's sitting in the Fulton County Jail, killed 2 of her children, she's pregnant. Under this, she would have to be allowed to be with her baby after the baby was born for at least 72 hours, unless the medical professional didn't think that was the right choice. The medical professional. So not law enforcement, but the medical professional. Obviously, I think you guys are aware of expansion and decertification. So there are some things in here. I think we all know that none of us are going to say that there are bad cops, but they certainly are not representative of the whole. There are a lot of great cops that are out there. Unfortunately, less and less today because people are leaving. But under this scenario, I'll give you an example. Let's say you've got a great state's attorney here who wouldn't charge somebody for failure to activate their body camera, which is a blasphemy felony, if they knowingly and intentionally did not activate that. The problem you've got is now the Law Enforcement Training Standards Board could say, well, you could have been charged with a felony here, and I'm going to decertify you. So you're not getting charged with a felony, but you've lost your ability to be a police officer moving forward. And I apologize, I'm way too familiar with this horrible bill. So a couple of other quick things that are effective in January 1st of 2023. First of all, let me ask you, what happens, why would they make some of the more overwhelming significant changes effective January 1st of 2023? I hear elections. Yes, isn't that amazing? So you've got cash bail, elimination of cash bail. There is a full-blown desire across the movement here to no longer hold would-be offenders responsible, financially responsible for the criminal justice system that they are part of. That all now is intended to be on those people's backs that are not participants in the criminal justice system. I mean, that's just as easy as I can put it. I mean, everything is going to be put on your back. They don't believe that people should pay for their speeding tickets. They don't believe that they should pay for, warrants. And none of those kind of things. I don't know how they think that those services will be provided other than raising their property taxes. Habitual criminals. That was completely gutted in terms of being able to add additional sentencing if somebody was a habitual criminal. Felony murder. Let me explain a little bit. Felony murder was significantly changed. How felony murder works today is, let's say that there's 3 of us that go and rob a bank. I'm in the car in the getaway room, but I know that one of my accomplices had a gun. So there's a strong possibility that individual could engage with somebody else in there, a security guard, whoever, somebody that resists, right? They should be killed. Under felony murder, prior to this bill, all 3 can be charged with murder because they're all accomplished to the same crime, right? Under this, that's no longer the case. Just the person that took the shot. So that's kind of an overview of the bill. I'll give you a little idea. This is obviously, as was indicated before, was the bill that passed in the early morning hours. That right there is the trailer bill that we have worked on collectively from the Law Enforcement Coalition. So us, FOP, chiefs have worked on to try to make, this is not something that we're supportive of, as you all know, and our effort will be to continue to repeal and roll back as much of this as possible. That's dealing around the edges to try and make it at least something that is implementable for law enforcement to be able to do the best that we can in the circumstances that we provide to be able to protect all of you. And that's 402 pages. So I'm happy to go into more detail on those things. I know real quickly, I would like to share with you a couple of bills that are out there for this room to Representative Luft's point. House Bill 3447, that defelonizes the controlled substances that I talked about. House Bill 3085 would make any amount of marijuana legal. So when I was testifying against this one, I said, so my understanding is you're okay with me driving a semi-load of weed, and that's no longer a felony. Hell, it's not even a criminal charge anymore. So, elimination of no-knock warrants. How would you all feel if your daughter had been abducted and we know the location that they're at, but we have to announce before we come in? What happens? One, they're ready for us. Two, they probably would kill your daughter. I mean, there's just no, let's think about the scenarios here. Bad housing and policing. This was talked about in terms of indemnification, removing qualified immunity. It goes well beyond removing qualified immunity. I, as a police officer, I arrest Chris for a variety of reasons. But I arrest Chris. And the judge ultimately says, well, Chris is not guilty. Or it doesn't even get to the point where the judge has a chance to determine not guilty. I deprive Chris of his rights by arresting him. They can come back and sue me. I go to a domestic, and again, one option, right? So I go to a domestic and I see two combatants. I don't know who the aggressor is, so both of them go in cuffs until I determine what happened. The person that went into cuffs, that was the victim, can sue me. But any good news here? The General Assembly did think that it was appropriate for them to become conservators of the peace. So while we are not very good cops, they with no training, they should go ahead and become conservators of the peace. We should videotape all felonies when we're doing any sort of interrogations. In theory, that's not a terrible idea. But the reality is that as soon as you catch somebody, a lot of times the first thing they do is to be a culprit and say, man, I'm so sorry I did this, and this is what I did. Are you prepared to videotape it at that time? Probably not. Can you imagine the city of Chicago with retail theft over, so it's a felony, having to videotape everyone what's occurred? It's impossible. Banning of consent search. So what does that mean? I stop your vehicle, you're a suspicious vehicle, I say, hey, do you mind if I go ahead and look through your car? I can't ask you to do that anymore. I have to have probable cause or warrant. If I'm checking houses, because we're looking for somebody, and you want to make sure you can get on your way and not be detained any longer than possible, I say, do you mind if I look through your house and make sure that Joe Smith is in your house? Can't do that. Changing the juvenile age. Raising the juvenile age today, it's up to 18. They want to change it up to 19 and then up to 20 because youth brains are not fully developed until they're at least 26. Well, I'm pretty positive that I'm 50 and you're never fully developed. So, penalty reductions across the board. In terms of decriminalization of everything. It's all of our fault as society for people in their behavior. Fix the FOIA, raising the FOIA fees. I'm sure it won't improve high-speed time in terms of getting the FOIA cards out, but nonetheless. And expansion of the firearm restraining order, which will get into a lot of domestic situations, divorce situations where somebody feels the need to go ahead and file on their ex and say that they're endangering themselves or others. You go ahead and take away all their guns. That is correct. Passed with 69 votes out of the House yesterday. So those are just a few hits on the greatest hit list for today. But I'll be happy to answer questions whenever we're ready to do that. Unfortunately, like I said, we're ready to do that. So, any questions? Are we ready?
I got a comment. I appreciate you guys, the information that you're giving us. And I'm sure everybody in this room has been aware of it, kind of. But where does it go from here? Like 5 million people, 5 million. Where do we get the information to them to realize, to let them realize that it's a mistake? So where do we go from here as ordinary citizens to take it from here? How many rooms are like this? How many rooms like this are being done in the state of Illinois?
I'm not going to comment on that right now. We're just talking about that while we're just sitting here at the beginning of this meeting. We need more of these. And my comment was, yes, we do. As these bills come out and they go into the Fed and you start feeling these and you start seeing these, I promise you, there'll be a lot of them still. There'll be a lot of these meetings. There'll be a lot of questions. There'll be a lot of frustration. There'll be panic. There'll be demands. These rooms, just like this, are going to continue to grow. My schedule, these guys' schedules, will be out of control. Because once you start seeing this, feeling this, you're going to want an explanation. How did this happen? How did we get here? What do we do now? And one of the main things that everybody up here has said, educate yourself on what's going on. Number one, just like that House Bill 1092. How do you want to raise your hand if you're married and keep it up if you've ever had an argument with your spouse? Right? No one has gone through marriage and not had some kind of major issue. Not what's on TV, not about dinner, a major issue in their family. Your neighbor hears that argument and makes a phone call. And now you got no evidence in your house.
Or ammo.
Or ammo.
So to give you an idea, think about the friends that you know and how many pallets of ammo some of them have. And where the heck are you going to put that? And we're responsible for it. I think the other answer to your question, though, to me, is it's a preemptory stuff here, too. So don't just wait for us to come and talk about the bad or the past. Be engaging with, not just with your representative, but your state senator and others, and your neighbors. You know, when you're at the coffee house, be talking to other people, because a lot of how many times do you go around somewhere and people are like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Educate them a little bit. Get them fired up.
While you're doing that education, think about what you just watched up here. These gentlemen that spend their life in that role of police officer, for these guys to come up here to this podium and not completely come unglued is amazing. The reason that they're not is because they know the importance of educating you on what's going on. I sat and listened to these guys talk. You can see the apple in their throats. You can see the frustration in their eyebrows. You can see their hands trembling from the anger of what's coming, what they're dealing with right now. That they're staying professional and staying on the path of educating because they know how important it is to get across to you what's really going on. So when you go out and you talk to your neighbors, you talk to your co-workers, stay professional about it. Because once you start getting agitated, and once you start getting really upset, the walls go up and nobody's hearing anything. Stay on course with that education.
Thing is, we educate ourselves. Most of us room probably already have educated ourselves. I mean, we've learned a lot tonight. And I've been falling, and I'm sure a lot of other people have been falling. But is it too, I mean, it's already there and it started, so where do we make the change? Where do we back up? How can we back up? Where do we make a change on all this? So, I mean, is election time to make a change? Is that, you know, I don't know.
My name is Chris Southwood, I'm president of the FOP here in Illinois, representing over 36,000 law enforcement professionals all across the state. You're asking some very good questions. This came about so fast. I mean, if you look at this is the bill. 764 pages, folks. 764 pages that was dropped on us 3 o'clock in the morning during the lame duck session in Illinois in early January.
And change the bill number like
In that week, the Illinois FOP, the sheriffs, the chiefs, the coalition that we had, we stopped this 3 different times. We had this stopped because we knew how bad it was. Every time we stopped it, they pulled the Springfield two-step on us, changed the bill number, changed some things up, told everybody we took the bad stuff out. Go ahead, now you can vote for it. At the last minute, the very last minute of the very last day of the 101st General Assembly, the last second, that last night, I didn't sleep, Jim didn't sleep, Sean Rosalie, those of us involved at the Capitol, we did everything we could to stop this. This was dropped in the Senate first, I think around 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Your senator from this area, in fairness, Senator Kaler, was invited to come here tonight, and he declined because he said, you know, they're in session right now, and he needed to be in Springfield. Well, Representative Luft's here. It was important enough for him to come here and address folks. But they dropped this on us. Some of them voted for it in a way I can understand. I've been involved in the Capitol for probably 10 years now. At the end of my career with the Illinois State Police, I was a registered lobbyist for Troopers Lodge 41. Spent a lot of time in the Capitol in the last decade. I have never seen anything like what I saw in the lame duck session in the last month, or there in January. Never seen anything like it. The tactics used to get this passed were unlike anything I've ever seen. Minority Leader Jim Durkin, the Minority Leader of the House, literally, we listened to him yelling before they passed this in the final minutes of that session to stop intimidating his members and to stop intimidating members of the House who weren't sure whether they were going to vote for this or not. The Illinois Legislative Black Caucus, and I'll say it, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like the tactics they used to get this passed. There were comments made about Illinois police officers shooting unarmed black men in the back once or twice a week. Are you kidding me? Give me one example. One example. There isn't any. In the last 5 years, or from 2015 to 2020, can anybody in the room tell me of a serious, one of these nationwide events that have occurred here in Illinois with Illinois law enforcement? Can anybody tell me of one event that's happened from 2015 to 2020 involving law enforcement, one of these national incidents? You can't, because there hasn't been. Hasn't been. In 2015, we passed historic police reform here in Illinois. We led the nation in passing police reform in Illinois. And the FOP was a big part of it. We worked together with both sides, and we were able to bring about real, true police reform. Now, I'm not saying it's because of that reform that we haven't had any critical incidents, but I will say Illinois law enforcement is some of the best trained in the nation. Some of the best, finest trained in the nation. This, folks, this is not police reform. This is punishment. That's what this is. Unfortunately, by punishing the police, they're also putting you, our civilian population, at risk. And I encourage you to ask questions about what's being passed in this bill so that you all do educate yourself. You ask us a path forward. We have, LOFOP has a path forward. We have a 2-year plan. We're going to do everything in our power to make changes in 2 years in the General Assembly. We can no longer have a one-party system in Illinois, folks. We can't have it. It's destroyed. It's our goal, it's the LOFOP's goal to hopefully flip the House. We think it's the easiest to flip, aside from the the Senate, and that's our goal. And look, I'm not standing up here trying to be Republican or Democrat. I was a lifelong Democrat. I am no longer. I didn't leave the Democrat Party, they left me. And we're going to need your help. We're going to need the help of the public. We're going to do everything we can. I will personally do everything I can to travel all across the state. I'm doing it now. We have over 300 locals in Illinois. We have Chicago Lodge 7, the largest FLP local in the nation, all the way down to some of the smallest locals, all the way down to Metropolis, for instance. We're traveling across the state. We're getting our folks organized, dedicated to making change. We're trying to educate the public. I commend Kaitschuk, the president of Lodge 427. This is the first meeting like this in the state of Illinois. This is the first town hall meeting like this in the state of Illinois. And we're hoping because of this one, more will kick off and we can get out and continue to educate the public. Our plan is to change either the House or the Senate. At a minimum, we have to eliminate the supermajority that the Democrats have. If we can put a Republican governor in the governor's seat and take away the supermajority in one or the other, at least a Republican governor could veto something and not have to worry about being a veto override. Again, I'm not sitting here telling you Republican, Democrat. That's not my point. It's not my purpose. It's just we can no longer afford to have a one-party system in Illinois. That's our plan. That's what we're doing to change it. And I think we'll be successful. You know, the 2022 elections, every seat in the House and Senate and the governor's office is up for re-election. Happens only one time, I believe, every 10 years. And we're going to do everything we can to take advantage of that and hopefully make some positive changes for you folks in the future. Thank you. If you have questions, please.
For these people, how many times has Governor Pritzker met with any representatives of the FOP, the state police, or the Sheriff's Association? How many times has he met?
I can't speak for the Sheriff's Association. I can speak for the FOP. And I can tell you 0 times has he met with the FOP. You can double your 0. We can double our 0 for the Sheriff's Association.
So pretty much he doesn't care about law enforcement.
I can tell you this. Yes.
Explain that.
Listen, right after what happened with George Floyd, which is just less than a year ago today, you realize that happened at the end of May 25th when that happened. A year ago, just less than a year ago. Right after that happened, we reached out to all the legislative leaders all across the state, House, Senate, Governor's office, because we knew this was coming. We knew police reform. We knew they were going to try to push something else through. We knew it. The Republican leadership met with us in both the House and Senate. The Democrats, then Speaker Madigan, actually did meet with us. I have to give him credit for that. The Senate President, Don Harmon, who is still the Democrat, the Senate President, the leader of the Senate, he met with us, and I can tell you exactly how that meeting went. We met, we talked, and could tell things weren't going good. He looked at me and he said, Chris, if the FOP wants a seat at the table when it comes to police reform, you need to be prepared to come to the table, and I quote, with your hat in your hand, and be prepared to admit you're the problem. Not me personally, although I am the problem with the FOP and law enforcement itself. These are not conditions that we could come to the table on. This is like telling us to sit down and shut up. We're going to do what we're going to do, and you sit in the corner and we don't want to hear from you. That was unacceptable to me then. I was furious. I used to have a fairly decent relationship with Don. I was extremely disappointed in his response. John Canizares was at the meeting, the president of Lodge 7. He has a little bit shorter of a temper fuse than me. He told Senator Harmon he could go F himself. governor's office, we never even heard from him. Although we knew he traveled all over the state meeting with different activist groups, Black Lives Matter, NAACP, he refused to meet with us, wouldn't even return a phone call. So that's where we were. We did everything we could. I'm very, very thankful to the Sheriff's Association because they're the only way we had even a remote seat at the table on when it came to the certification process with the Attorney General's office. They had some meetings with them, and they were our only avenue to those because we weren't invited to that table either, which is a shame because that's why where we're at today with this bill. Anybody in law enforcement can read this bill and know law enforcement wasn't involved in this process. This is terrible. It's a terrible, terrible bill. It's terrible not just for us, not just for law enforcement on the street. It's terrible for you folks too. It's terrible for the general public. I don't want to take all your time. If you have questions, please ask them. That's how we're going to attack this. That's the FOP's response. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make changes in 2022.
Thanks, Chris.
Question? Yes.
What is law enforcement going to do if they're ordered to enforce law against citizens? It's obviously unconstitutional.
I'm retired.
Well, as you know, I'll just speak as I work with sheriffs, you're constitutionally elected sheriffs. I think I just answered the question, didn't I? It's going to be up to them. I mean, the sheriffs are going to, if they believe something's unconstitutional, there are a lot of laws. We as officers have just what's called discretion too, right? I pull somebody over with 165 and 55, do I write them all a ticket? I'd say that's what we're going to do.
Jim, I'm assuming that I spoke of how many sheriffs are retiring. Would you inform them of that?
Sure. Obviously, we have 102 sheriffs in the state, right? We've got 11 that are retiring early this year. Now, let me give you a little example of that. When they were talking about House Bill 1727 in committee, the bad apples and policing, the qualified immunity, et cetera, I brought that up to one of the members speaking about it. He said, Jim, maybe that's just as well. They don't have any passion for the profession. They should go ahead and get out. He said, really? It started to get a little more heated at that point in time, and the chairperson cut me off. But so anybody who questions a sheriff for running for office, you all know what they face. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is not a part-time gig. This is not something where you're off on the golf course. It is a significant responsibility. And your family, not only did they run for sheriff, but so did your family and your friends. So obviously I was very insulted, and I think that all sheriffs should be insulted from that. So 11 that are leaving this year, several already have. At least 33, including those 11, will not seek re-election. So that's a third of the sheriffs in the state. And I would bet that's one that I know of, but I bet
I'm from East Peoria. I heard this on the radio, and I wasn't planning on speaking. But I'm the deputy chief of East Peoria, and to answer your question, the Constitution is going to fall. My officers will follow the Constitution. And this bill can say whatever it wants, but we will not violate the Constitution, just so you know.
Question for Mr. Southwood and also for you, sir. People are always saying, well, we didn't know anything about this bill. We didn't know what it was going to do. We didn't know it was going to affect us like this. People didn't know. And they say, well, why didn't you guys put out press releases? How many press releases did you people put out to the media? And what was the media's response?
Well, we put out a lot. I couldn't tell you the number that we put out. But anybody, we were talking earlier about social media. Who likes us on social media as a Sheriff's Association? How many times do you see us put out something about a bill? We
we put out bills all the time.
Is he talking about your money on the page or his? They two different things?
We have our own Facebook page. Well, it's for the Illinois Sheriff's Association, and I share a lot.
He shares a lot.
So you see, like, each bill that we put out there, you know, we didn't put out a lot of information on it, just like, ironically, they were almost all bills that we posed, but we kind of let that, you know, grassroots just kind of evolve up. So if you're looking for information, we put out all kinds of stuff on social media, Twitter, Instagram, I mean, we're out there on all kinds of stuff. Because the problem we run into, to your question on the media, is there's no guarantee that they're going to cover any press release that we put out. So if we don't use other mechanisms to put this out there, or pay for ads, which obviously we're a small association, you know, you have to have significant revenue to pay for ads to put stuff out. And it evolves so quickly, you don't have time to generate the information to make a decent ad put out there. So if you've got questions, I mean, everybody's got my cell phone, so call, you know, but you can, again, everything is out there, we put it out on the media.
And Jim's cell phone number's on the bathroom. Well, just kidding. We put out tons of information from the state FOB office. We do a lot of press releases. I can tell you our recent press releases have been picked up 0. Very, very few of our press releases get picked up. They just don't. Hats off to WBYS, the local radio station. They're here. I did an interview with them, a radio show with them, and really put out some good information. You know, I think your local media is really good for the most part at putting stuff out, but national media, statewide media, sometimes Tribune, those are oftentimes we don't get much coverage of those. They just don't pick the stuff up. But please, if you've got questions about a bill or you've got questions about something, please don't hesitate to call the ILFOB office. If we don't have an answer, we'll get an answer to you. And we don't misrepresent the facts. We just say it how it is. And we'll tell you, you may not want to hear it, or you may want to hear it, but we're not gonna lead you astray.
I have a couple things to say. First, that's what we put our faith in our representatives. Look what's happened. You know, we can't, the average person can't keep up with everything. There's no way. So look who's failed us. That's the thing that I'm going to say first. The second, here in Fulton County and Central Illinois for the most part, sometimes we believe that all this bad stuff's not going to happen. I can testify. I'm a retired deputy. I spent 90% of my career in a drug unit working in this area. About 10 years ago, we had a horrible influx of crack cocaine and heroin coming through Canton. So most people didn't know how bad it was. It was all coming from Chicago. And the people we would arrest, and they were gangbangers out of Chicago, they would catch a bus to Peoria, and someone here in Canton would pick them up and bring them to Canton instead of their shop. That's what they call it, to sell crack and heroin. So, do you think it was bad then? It was horrible. We made tons of arrests. We made some deals with the 64th and Bishop gang that their group would not come down. It was part of the State Police Task Force, Canton PD, and the Fulton County Sheriff's Department. We're a large organization that worked over here. We made an agreement that they would not bring their people down here to sell in our community. They got a lighter sentence than what they probably would have in a federal case. But this is decriminalized, and controlled substance is not felony. Can you imagine what it's going to be like? Here's a perfect example. For a rock of crack cocaine you can buy in Chicago, which I did a lot of heroin and crack cocaine cases in Chicago, for $20. Do you know what it sold for in Canton? $100. So they were making $80 off a $20 rock in Chicago. So, I mean, our community is wide open. And now it's fentanyl, which is even worse than that. So, you know, like I said, we used to think, oh, it won't happen in our area. It was bad. And I think it's going to get a lot worse than we think. So, that's all I have to say. If anybody has any questions. Tim?
Yeah, a couple of comments. maybe follow up on what Kendall said here in just a second, but we have a Democrat-leaning news media, generally speaking, and fair reporting of this bill and our men in blue across the country, it's not going to happen. Because the trend is, with the Democrat news media, they're going to talk how bad police are. We've got, us out here, we've got to tell people what a good job you're doing. I appreciate your coming here tonight and explaining the position on this bill. Everything sounds good to do. I know it sounds that way, but it's up to us to talk to people that we know to get the word out of what's going on here. And we've got to change the legislature. How are we going to get bills like that changed if we don't have more conservative-leaning people in the legislature? It's not going to happen. And the last thing I would say, along Kendall's question about what do we do now, is I was going to give up my concealed carry license. Okay, it's up for renewal, but with what's happened in the last 2 years, I'm not going to do that now. I've got a class I'm going to take next week. I can't rely, because of what's going on in that bill, I can't rely on the police to show up in southern Fulton County, where I live out in the woods, to get there in time when there's a problem. I expect there to be fewer law enforcement, people dropping out of law enforcement, and it's creating a huge problem. So we've got to figure out what we can do to correct it.
The first 3 words of the Declaration of Independence says, "We the people." It doesn't say, we have to understand that the elected officials work for us. I do want to take time to recognize Sheriff Jeff Stanton. He did make it here. And he's very passionate about what we're doing here. He's very supportive of our FOP Lodge. If you want to say anything, you're welcome to. He's a great guy. He
Better late than never. I apologize, I had some major problems for the last couple of days. If you see 8 cows out running around, Canton Lake and Farmington, you know, I don't know what I'll say here tonight, but I can guarantee you that these guys here have done more for policing in the last year than anybody will ever know. Chris, Jim, these guys have tried to have police backs with the coalitions that have been formed, and management and labor has finally worked together and decided they needed to work together to push some of this current legislation back. This bill, I saw Chris touch it a few times. It is the worst piece of legislation that has came out in years. I followed this pretty stringently over the last year. And when these guys are telling me they're up at 3 o'clock working on that to get this canceled, they were, because I was getting text messages and everything else. So, you know, I'm not going to reiterate everything that is said, but, you know, we as the sheriff's office are going to work with our representatives. Thanks for coming as well. He's been a good voice for us. Senator Tracy has been fantastic in some of our problems with the Department of Corrections that local government has been facing. That's another story. But, you know, as they're saying, you know, we the people, you got to stand up, whatever you got to do, you got to vote. And that's all I'm going to say.
Ryan?
I'll say something real quick. To address your comment about doom and gloom, you're absolutely right. When they started talking about this bill when it came out, I'm not supposed to have an opinion because I still currently am employed as a police officer. So right now, my opinion is probably going to get me labeled by somebody as racist, bigoted, or whatever. These guys started this to help us out. They started it to help everybody that's still in here who's not supposed to have a voice. When they started talking about this bill that was coming out, they talked about, I saw the the counter campaigns from the other side saying, oh, the FOP or the Sheriff's Association or this union, that union, they're using scare tactics. Well, I want to be honest with you. I've been doing this. I started as a volunteer when I was 20 years old. It's all I ever wanted to do. I just turned 48 2 weeks ago, and things have changed. You should be scared. I'm one of those people that's still working. I'm not going to go to work, and I'm not going to let somebody get hurt because I'm not supposed to intervene. That's not in me. That's not why I chose to do this job, and that's not why the guys that are sitting here, the guys that are retired, the guys that spent their lives doing the job, and the current men and women that are still here, still doing it. That's not in us. Like I said, I'll admit, like any other profession, there's problems. But they talk about decriminalizing these controlled substances. It started with marijuana, and you can have that whole debate, whether marijuana or alcohol, which is worse. But I can tell you right now, I've seen the effects of heroin, I've seen the effects of methamphetamine, the opioids. It's not good. We get weekly, 3-4 times a week, we get called to go pick a syringe out of somebody's yard. In my off time, I mow. One of the places I mow is across the street at the ATM. 2 weeks ago, I picked up a syringe at the ATM while I was mowing. They're finding them in playgrounds. I have 3 kids of my own. They're 10, they're 12, and I got a daughter who's 17. Things that I didn't see when I was in school, I was fortunate. They're seeing it. So when I tell you, you should be scared, go ahead, listen. You can listen to their arguments, and they're going to say it's scare tactics, but you should be. Because the good people are the ones who are going to suffer because of this. And I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I'm not going to go to calls after July or maybe January and wonder, well, do I risk losing my house and everything my family has to do the right thing? Because it's going to be in the back of my head. I'm going to do the right thing and hope that the right thing turns out as a result of that. And so is everybody that works underneath me or works with me. That I can guarantee you. But these people are up here for your benefit just as much for ours. The average person is the one who's going to reap the repercussions of all this. Not the criminals. They don't play by the rules anyway. So, thank you to Ike, Chris, everybody sitting here. Mr. Luft, thank you for coming. Thank you to everybody that came to listen tonight. This is something that's very important to me. Like I said, I have kids, I have a family. My friends have families. I was born here, I was raised here. I spent a little time outside of Chicago. I didn't like it. It was a suburb, it wasn't inner city, but it was hustle and bustle. I didn't like it. I came back here and I decided to do this. It was more of a calling. But I can tell you that because of things like this, when I first started testing here, we get 50 applications every 2 years, minimum. At the end, there'd be 35 names on that list, everybody wanting that job. We have a chairman of our fire police commission over here. He can tell you how many do we have at the last testing? 3. 3 in one lateral. And I think out of the 3, was there 1 that passed physical? Okay. 2 didn't pass. 2 wouldn't have scored on the written test that I took. Back then, they took the mid-90s, the high 90s. Now we're seeing, you're not getting the quality people that you got because it's not worth the risk to reward is not there for a lot of people. So thank you to everybody that came tonight. Thank you for listening. And like I said, if you have any influence, use it. Don't be afraid to stick your head up. That's been the problem. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, but everybody out there, the only argument I've seen, or the 90% of the attacks that you see back as soon as you open your mouth, if you're conservative or if you're just somebody that cares, is, oh, you're a racist. Nobody wants that label. I don't want it. I don't want to be on CNN. I don't want to be on Facebook Live right now. But this is more important.
That's why I'm pointing it at Chris.
Thank you.
And nothing
It's
personal.
like a Jeff Dunham thing.
Well,
Chris's mouth is open now.
and nothing personal, but he's a lot more
No,
photogenic.
that's fine. He's got the red shirt. We already brought that up. But seriously, thank you all for coming. And thank these guys that are sitting up here, because I do. When Ike approached me about this whole thing, I thought to myself, I said, this is something that's been long overdue. And it's not just this, you know, it always bothered me when guys retired. In our line of business, it's kind of like you're out the door and say, I may bump into him at the grocery store. This is something for us to get together, but it's also to push better and make better our profession. And that's what all of these guys are doing. So thank you.
Going once. Go ahead, sir. Pat, then you.
Okay, all right. First of all, you guys got me where I want to take the gas fight tonight, okay? And I'm serious. And I'm not going to tell you my age either. But I was born and raised in Chicago, and we worked there a lot of years, and we worked with people who are just like us. They didn't live in a good neighborhood, they lived in awful neighborhoods. They couldn't sit in their living room or outside at night because they would get shot up. They would not have approved that bill. So what I'm asking is, who is behind all this and why? There has to be a reason that these people want the inmates to take over the asylum. I mean, what is behind all this?
There's a choreographed agenda. This happened in Colorado. It's happening here. It's moving to other states. And I can't tell you exactly who they are, but the Black Caucus in the state of Illinois controls the legislative agenda. They have, and there's a couple of them who they've been arrested, one on a gun charge. They have an avenue now to bring tax law. And in my opinion, it's a personal vendetta against law enforcement. The one who got arrested for the gun charge offered the bad apples law, which also had a caveat in there that they could turn around and sue the law enforcement officer with a 5-year, even after you retire, they can go back 5 years and sue the officer. So the city of Chicago is running the state of Illinois right now. And it's the Black Caucus. And this is not, I'm not a racist individual. I'm just telling you what the truth is. If you research every bill, it has an author, it has co-sponsors, and all you have to do is, in every legislative, they have the bios on there. All you have to do is take some time, get on the internet, ilga.gov. You can look them up, read the bill. There's also with every bill a legislative intent as to what that bill is supposed to do. That establishes some degree of constitutionality. Do your homework. But this isn't only just occurring in Illinois. This started in Colorado last year. And the law enforcement officers flooding out of Colorado. They removed the qualified immunity in Colorado. And they passed a law that the first $25,000 of every incident the officer has to pay for. That means that Ryan Miracle is sued today. Next week he is sued. The following week he is sued. And each incident, the first $25,000 is on him. Now, I don't know any law enforcement officer who can cut a check for $75,000. If they can, there might be an issue. But this has someone somewhere that's pulling some change, and it's well thought out and well organized and well financed. Black Lives Matter has unlimited resources. Corporate America bows to them and gives them millions and millions and millions of dollars.
So they're a socialist group.
Absolutely, they're Marxists. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely they are.
So where is all this going then? Is that what's at the end of the tunnel here? Socialism, that's what this whole thing is about?
There are books out there right now, have been for decades. There's books that have been out for decades.
One of them, the author of Saul Alinsky.
That will walk you through step by step.
It's their playbook.
How to make this happen. How to create this situation. How to get it to that binder over there. And then how to strike from there. These have been out for decades. And each group has educated themselves with these processes. And they are working very, very hard. Not to disrupt the state level, not to just disrupt the state college. This is a goal to disrupt the short and this is probably the most progress that has happened with this since the origin of these books. That's why when I said earlier, I have not seen the culture change in things for this past 2 years. I have not as new to this past that I was scared 2 more years ago. I gave an analogy. Somebody was asking me. The crazy thing about it is, and you said it, look at it in terms of prison. You have, say, 10,000 people in prison. You have 250 prison cars. It's switched. We are the mass contained by very small. It's very small. As that officer said, they'll be able to stay together. Because there'll come a time when you don't. You won't be able to. And then actually, the pain process.
Well, the same group is gonna see to it that they remove all of our rights to own a gun, have a gun. And if you guys are right in the picture, who's gonna come in and control all
I
that?
started with that bill 1092, there's others coming. You can have your weapon removed by somebody else's complaint. I'm 55, and I know it has a lot to do with my job and the schedule, but I forget stuff. I forget things. I can remember my second grade teacher's name, but sometimes I can't remember who I met 2 hours ago. Anybody my age or older knows how that goes. If you're having an issue with that, somebody can simply make a phone call and say, I'm concerned about this person with their memory. Suffering from dementia, and all of a sudden, and your weapon's gone. That's what these bills are doing. And even when we argue those and give rational, common sense, sensible, fair rebuttal back and laugh, they smirk, and they just turn around and say, you better, they got votes. I've been doing Zooms for 15 months. I'm tired. In my office. I forgot to hit the mute button back there. One time. I've never worked. I was in committee. I was arguing the bill. I was frustrated. And it was my turn to speak. I already bill. And I thought I reached over to you. And I moved back to my chair, my desk, where I could see my district director. And I looked right at her and I said, I don't know why we're going through all this. They have votes. They're just going to shut through. Before I could complete that sentence, fellow committee members almost as if we get it, and you're right, but we just want to say to you, we want you to get as you don't have. I don't care if you have 5 million people that you're representing. We're here for us. And while we're here, the super majority, we're going to do everything we can. I have sat in committee after committee after committee and addressed nothing but the other side's bills. 650 some odd bills sitting on the floor, and 190 of those were Republican contractor bills. They don't even give us a fair number to put up there. I get a 10-minute notice from going to committee at 8 o'clock at night. You can sit there till midnight and push their bills through. Sit there, argue, debate, knowing that ultimately it's going through. Everything we're saying is that super majority. We talked about the election, couldn't be more important. Even not to get us to a majority so that we can turn around and do the same. It's to get it to fair ground. The same rules for everybody. Everybody's on the same court. Everybody's on the same field. We're not even on it. I watched the bill come through. The Republican representative was allowed to speak on it after the laws. That was okay. Not allowed. And he did his little deal with that. I'm not saying this for any other reason other than it was live. You can go on and watch the House live and see what people are saying. I'm merely repeating what somebody says. While this gentleman was explaining my wife wanted me to do this, she wanted me to close the loophole on black market dogs, increase the penalties for dealing in black market dogs. A representative on their side stood up and said, "This is a good example of how in God's white America, you people care more about laws than you do what." And you say that? I'm not saying that for any other reason other than that's what that's what we're doing. That's what we're working with. Where we're at right now. This next election, as they said, happens once every 10 years. It could be more important. Even just to get us to fair ground. If the numbers are close, they're going to have to talk to us. We're going to have to work with us. We're going to have to be fair. But right now, they don't have to. And they don't have to until November of
This question probably isn't feasible at all, but I gotta ask, since the governor signed off on all that nonsense there, and he's been doing things that
It's too apathetic. And we've been kicked enough to push to the corner. It's time to stand up. Patrick, how many of the population percentage voted the last time?
About 11%.
11%. 11%.
Well,
I voted, so I can complain. I can put you all at once. I voted.
You know,
You need to vote.
I understand what you're saying, but realistically, with Chicago, as far as it'd be very different. I ain't saying it's impossible. Nothing, anything's impossible.
Right.
But it would be very different.
How are we to guarantee that we have elections after the last election?
Patrick, will you answer that question?
I'm the election authority in Fulton County, and I can guarantee you, if you cast a ballot in Fulton County,
We don't have
you
any-
have
we don't
the
have
utmost
any-
integrity.
We don't have
In my
any
eyes.
votes. We don't have any votes.
We have that. I can guarantee that. The first point is, in Illinois, you can recall the governor, but it's quite a process. But the governor is about the only elected official that can be recalled, and I think the House Republicans are working on it.
I got a question for you. You know, we've heard, well, I've heard from all my life, this was all the dead people in Chicago voting, it's all guaranteed. Can you guarantee that Chicago has integrity?
I can almost guarantee they don't.
It deals with Fulton County.
Yeah, Fulton County. That's all I can guarantee.
That's like our last, well, we won't get into that last election, but I think they studied Chicago's electoral process in our national election last time.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Is there any sanctuary cities in Illinois? Is it possible, or is there any sanctuary cities? Or the state of Illinois?
Are you talking
State?
immigration-wise, or, okay, I think Chicago is a
Well,
sanctuary.
criminal wise, where they're protected in certain areas, for ISIS to come in and do anything.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Louis is trying to push that right now.
Okay. Any other questions? It's getting late. This was put together rather rapidly, and I thank all of you for coming out tonight. Yeah, we're proud. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming, but remember those words, we